Welcome back to the channel. I'm Frank from Daily Grind Running, and today we're taking a look at the all-new Saucony Triumph 24. After the last couple versions left a lot of runners wanting more, Saucony went back to the drawing board to bring a new foam and a redesigned ride to breathe life into one of its most iconic daily trainers. But did they succeed? Is this shoe really a triumphant return for Saucony, or just a moral victory? Let's lace them up, go on the road together, and find out for ourselves. Let's go. So I'm about 0.6 of a mile in on my first run in this Saucony Triumph 24, and so far it's very underwhelming. I don't know what it is about the shoe, but the forefoot just feels really thin right now. This Incredilux foam is their new aliphatic TPU training foam from Saucony that's tuned for daily paces, but it's just not really giving me a whole lot of energy return. And that's why we get out here and get these miles in, because the brands, they want to tell you it's PIBA, it's aliphatic TPU, it's TPEE, it's nitrogen infused PIBA, whatever, right? But that doesn't tell us a whole lot sometimes, because brands can just say whatever. It feels like a very high drop shoe. The forefoot feels very thin compared to the heel. That 33 is actually a really nice stack in the forefoot, but it's because of the perception in comparison and relationship to the heel. It feels thin underfoot, and that could cause a harsh ride. So far, that's what I'm kind of getting, is this unpleasant forefoot experience. I'm just not vibing with this shoe at all. The upper is a more generic cushioned mesh upper. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing spectacular about it. The fit is pretty decent. I feel that the fit is good. It's more wide accommodating than other shoes that I've tested recently. So for my foot being more normal width, I can see myself having to crank the laces down a little bit to get the right lockdown. But it has that elf heel flare, and it's comfortable on the Achilles. Overall, the upper is what it is. This shoe is definitely tuned for cushioning. The shoe feels slow. It feels like the lower end of my daily paces right now, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Not every shoe has to be fast, bouncy, propulsive, all the above. It's good to have a shoe that is cushioned and slow. I just expected it to be a little bit faster because of the Incredilux foam. When you think about it, Lux, luxurious, incredibly luxurious. It's stable. But it still feels like that old suspension on a roller coaster, if that makes sense. Like, you can upfit the Loch Ness Monster at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, if you've been there, you know, you can make it somewhat smoother and more enjoyable, a little bit faster, but it'll never be on the same level as a brand new Pantheon type of a ride where you are going 75 miles an hour, that new track where it really bolts you forward. I felt the same thing at the Velocicoaster at Universal. Just the same thing in Hagrid's motorbike ride. So if you've been there, if you felt that feeling, you know what I mean. That very modern coaster feeling. And this just feels like either an upgraded wooden coaster or like a 30-year-old coaster that they've upfitted and brought some new life into it. But of course, it's not redesigned from the ground up. It feels like an old Triumph. So if you've liked previous Triumphs, you probably will like this one. The feel is similar to the Triumph 20, just with the newer foam. Is this shoe from Saucony a triumph, or is it a moral victory? Honestly, it feels more like a moral victory to me. You think of a triumph like the Miracle on Ice, or the Boston Red Sox breaking the curse, coming down from 3-1 and beating the Yankees in the ALCS, and then going on to win the World Series. That's a triumph. Against all odds, you pull it off. It's the underdog story, the triumphant victory when you least expect it. And maybe people are down on Saucony, on the Triumph, and so even a return to form could be viewed as a triumph. But for me, this doesn't quite hit the mark of a triumph. But for Saucony, it's solid. It's a good moral victory. It'll sell some units. It'll make them feel better about where they're headed on the market and where they're headed as a brand. But what do you think? Do you think a shoe that was a total disappointment for the last two iterations being solid again, is that enough to be called a triumph? Or do you agree with me? Is that just a moral victory? All right, I'm back. Day 2 in the Saucony Triumph 24. One thing I noticed after my run yesterday is that the shoes were soaked. I go in the garage, I'll hang up my running clothes so they don't get nasty, mildewy, and then once they're dry, I'll put them in the laundry. So I came back maybe an hour later and all my running clothes were dry. I pulled them down off of where they hang, and then I was gonna put my shoes on the rack and they were still wet. So it's just a shoe that holds a lot of moisture. It's a shoe that is not very breathable. So that's one thing that if you run in hot, humid, tropical climates, like, it is definitely going to be a hot shoe. So it's very well cushioned, like numbers wise. But one thing I conveyed to somebody is that there's a difference between a shoe actually bottoming out and a shoe feeling that way compared to how tall the heel stack height is. So based on the fact that the foam is a little bit softer and it has that high drop, the forefoot is going to feel a little bit thin. And it's not bottoming out in the true sense of the word, but it's bottoming out in relationship to the heel. The geometry really is wanting to roll me quickly onto the toes and I don't really spend much time in the midfoot. Now, that's not a bad thing, but it means I'm putting a lot of force onto the toe, and I'm not like doing a quick turnover. So I'm really smashing and driving that toe area like into the ground. And I really do feel that's when the quote-unquote flat feeling or thin feeling geometry kind of comes into play. What's up, boss? Gotta show some love. These guys are out here taking care of this, but they gotta get this off the ground, off the road. I'm out here running in the tall grass. So the 24, I feel like it's working my feet more. Again, not a bad thing per se, but I don't feel like I'm really getting into a natural stride in this shoe. Sometimes a shoe just doesn't work for your mechanics. This shoe is feeling mid. Mid, for me, has some great characteristics, but just doesn't really work for you. The ride characteristic of this shoe has not changed at all. I've run 9 miles total. I don't think this shoe required really any break-in. It was already moderately soft out of the box. It's been stable. It's been well cushioned. It's been that luxurious ride. It's been plush, but it's been slow. I was trying to see if I put a little into it, what it would give back. And that answer is not much. You definitely feel the ground in this shoe. If you want a max stack recovery shoe that is more like anti-gravity, takes away the ground feel, protects the legs, then if you want that, you have to look elsewhere. Now I'm kind of noticing this like choppy feeling. I never felt that choppy feeling in the Super Blast 2 or 3. The geometry never bothered me. But for some reason with this crazy high rocker in the foam, it feels kind of slappy. Listen to how loud it is. The Triumph 24 is like your grandma's wicker chair with zero support, and it takes effort to climb out of. Or that stool that's too short and too low, that's hard to get in and hard to get out. You feel every little ache and pain in your back when you sit on it, and you can't wait to get out of it. That's what I feel in this shoe. It's a hot take. Again, I feel like it's mid. Today it feels very mid. I feel sore in my ball of my foot, and I just feel that every step I'm having to work hard to climb out of it. For me and where I'm at in my training, it's just not what I'm looking for. Welcome to the post-run wrap-up. I have totaled 15 miles on this shoe so far across 3 runs. I did 7 miles easy, and then I did 8 miles the next day in this shoe. It was split up across 2 runs, 6.35 miles outside and 1.65 miles on the treadmill. And my thoughts about this shoe were pretty consistent across the runs. Nothing really changed, but let's get into it with the upper first. This is a very thick and padded upper, and this heel collar, it does lock your foot in nicely. I do feel the fit is good. It's dialed pretty well. I had to tighten the laces up a decent bit to get that lockdown, but I think it will be wide foot accommodating. It has a good toe splay, both in the width and vertically, so nothing bothersome, no issues with the fit. But this tongue, this heel, and just overall this upper is super thick. This mesh, it just retains so much moisture. I finished my run the other day, and I have a garage that has a dehumidifier in there. It keeps it around 40% humidity. And hours later, I went back to my garage, and my clothes that I ran in were dry, completely dry, and this shoe was still soaked. So it holds so much moisture. So if you need breathability in your shoes, if you live in a hot, humid, and even a tropical climate, you might want to consider a different shoe. Moving on to this midsole, Saucony has their all-new Incredilux foam. This is an aliphatic TPU, but it's tuned for daily training, which means that it's more comfort-oriented and soft. And I'll show you how soft it is. Look how much I can squeeze that. So very soft and compliant shoe, and the compliant foam. So if you want more of a robust and firm shoe, you probably want to look elsewhere based on that alone. But in the Triumph 24, they still have this very traditional 10 millimeter drop from heel to toe, 43 millimeters in the heel, 33 in the forefoot, and a very flat geometry profile. Look at that. Not much of a rocker. Look at this. There's no toe spring. It's very flat. Might be deceiving a little bit with the upper, but underneath you can see it's very flat until you get to the very late stage here. Just a gentle rocker at the end. And I do feel that this foam bottoms out, or you get the feeling that it bottoms out. You're not going to actually bottom out 33 millimeters of foam in the forefoot, but because of this drop and the softness, I feel that this is feeling really thin underfoot. And the reason why I think it's exacerbated is because when you get from heel to toe, it's kind of slappy because of the geometry and the drop. So you land on the heel, it moves you to the midfoot, and when you get to the midfoot area, it just feels like all of this, you get so stuck in the ground. It just feels a little bit mushy with not much energy return and bounce. So I'm having to really mash on this midfoot and forefoot, and I'm kind of getting stuck here. It's not a lot of bounce and roll through on my stride. So I think they have to make some tweaks going into the next generation, and I'll talk about that in a second. The outsole. This has their standard Saucony XT 900 rubber on the outsole, and I do think that it has a lot of coverage. It will be very durable, but there is almost no grip on this outsole whatsoever. So my third run on the treadmill, I was already drenched, I was already dripping sweat, and my belt got a little bit wet on the treadmill, and I was slipping and sliding everywhere. So that was a terrible experience. Saucony might have the worst rubber in the game right now. So putting all those things together with this overly padded, hot, and very sweaty upper, with the geometry that's very traditional, with a very soft foam and a horribly slippery outsole, I'm giving this shoe a 6 out of 10. The only reason why I'm not giving it a 4 or a 5, somewhere in there, is because this midsole foam really is an amazing, upgraded and modern feeling max cushion foam. So if they made this drop more of a 6 millimeter drop like the Paramount Max, that has 43 and 37. If this was more like that with 43 and 37, or even 43 and 35 for an 8 millimeter drop, and they added a little bit of toe spring, maybe a little bit more of a heel bevel where you can transition a lot nicer, have a little bit more robust feel in the forefoot, and have just a nice rocker off the toes, and they fix this outsole and give you just a little bit less padding and more of a modern upper, you would have a real winner of a shoe that would easily be in the 8+ range. So they have their work cut out for them. I do feel like it's a little bit of a washed up line right now. It's kind of reminding me of like Aaron Rodgers. The Steelers organization is kind of in this weird place where they have this old former MVP, former champion quarterback who has seen better days. He is washed up. And if they want to get better as an organization, they have to get a whole lot younger and find their next franchise quarterback in the draft. That's what Saucony has to do. They have to get a whole lot younger. They need to get more modern with their foam, their geometry, the ride, all of that. Although I think this foam is good, it does not have a lot of energy return. So what is this shoe best for? It is best for walking, standing, and easy running. I was walking a little bit. I was getting baked in the sun, and walking, it felt great. When I stood in this shoe, standing in this shoe feels nice. I do think this shoe could work for someone that works like in the medical field on their feet all day long. Could be an alternative to a Hoka shoe or a different shoe that you've been using. I think that I would prefer to use the